Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your country no longer exists, not because it was conquered by an invading army, not because its government was overthrown in a violent revolution, but because the country itself had become part of another nation. That is what happened to East Germany. After World War II, Germany was divided between the victorious Allied powers. The Soviet Union controlled the eastern part, while the United States, Britain, and France controlled the western zones. In 1949, two separate German countries officially emerged. West Germany became the Federal Republic of Germany, and in the Soviet-controlled East, the German Democratic Republic was created. It became known simply as East Germany. But East Germany was not an ordinary new country. It stood directly on the front line of the Cold War. To the west was capitalist West Germany. To the east was the Soviet Union and its communist allies. Berlin became the most important symbol of this division. Even though Berlin was located deep inside East Germany, the city itself was divided between East and West. For years, millions of people could still move between the two sides. And many East Germans did something their government desperately wanted to stop. They left. Doctors, engineers, teachers, students, workers. Thousands of people were escaping to the West every month. For East Germany, this was becoming a disaster. The government was losing some of its most educated and skilled citizens. So in 1961, something shocking happened. East Germany closed the border around West Berlin. Soldiers appeared. Barbed wire went up. Roads were blocked. And soon, the Berlin Wall began rising through the city. Families were separated. People who lived only streets apart suddenly found themselves trapped on opposite sides. The wall became one of the most powerful symbols of the Cold War. But behind it, East Germany continued functioning as a communist state. The government controlled much of the economy. The ruling Socialist Unity Party dominated political life. The secret police, known as the Stasi, monitored citizens and hunted for opposition. For decades, the country appeared stable, but underneath the surface, pressure was building. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union itself was changing. Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms known as glasnost and perestroika. The Soviet Union was becoming less willing to use military force to keep Eastern European governments in power. That mattered enormously because East Germany depended heavily on Soviet support. Then, in 1989, events began moving incredibly fast. People started protesting across East Germany. They demanded freedom of movement, they demanded political reform, and increasingly, they demanded the right to leave. Thousands escaped through neighboring countries. Huge demonstrations filled East German cities. The government was losing control. Then came the moment that changed history. On November 9, 1989, an East German government spokesman announced new travel regulations. But during a confused press conference, he made it sound as if the restrictions would take effect immediately. Journalists asked when the new rules would begin. The answer stunned everyone. Immediately, people began heading toward the Berlin Wall. Border guards were confused. They had not received clear instructions. The crowds kept growing. Eventually, the gates opened. East and West Berliners climbed onto the wall. Strangers hugged each other. People celebrated in the streets. The Berlin Wall was effectively finished. And once the wall fell, East Germany's future became impossible to predict. For the first time, ordinary East Germans could freely travel into the West. Political pressure exploded. The communist government weakened, and within months, something that had seemed almost impossible became reality. East and West Germany began negotiating reunification, but there was a major question. Would East Germany remain an independent country? The answer was no. On October 3, 1990, East Germany officially ceased to exist as a separate state. Its territory and institutions became part of the Federal Republic of Germany. A country that had existed for more than 40 years disappeared from the political map. There was no traditional invasion, no massive battlefield, no foreign army marching through its capital. Instead, its people protested, its government collapsed, its border opened, and its population chose a different political future. That is what makes the story so unusual. East Germany did not simply lose a war, it lost the system that had held it together. The country that had once built a wall to stop its people from leaving eventually opened that wall. And once people were free to cross it, the division became almost impossible to maintain. Today, the former East Germany is part of modern Germany. The Berlin Wall is mostly gone, but pieces of it remain as reminders of a country that once divided one of the world's most important cities. And perhaps the strangest part is this. For more than 40 years, East Germany looked like like it might last for generations. Then, within less than a year after the Berlin Wall fell, the country itself was gone. Its disappearance was not caused by a single battle. It was caused by pressure from its own people, changes inside the Soviet Union, the collapse of communist governments across Eastern Europe, and one extraordinary chain of events that moved faster than almost anyone expected. East Germany disappeared from the map, but its story did not disappear. The wall, the protests, the families separated by borders, and the people who demanded freedom all became part of the history of the Cold War. And that is how a country that once seemed permanent became history almost overnight.